What's going on, world? Welcome to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Join today with me is myself. This is a special edition. I had some previously recorded episodes that was due to come out, but I just felt it was my duty, especially with everything that's going on in the world, to make sure that I contact you guys directly, or I created this platform because um, it was so many therapeutic stories that I wanted to share, and it's a lot going on as far as police brutality right now. And I with more of a sensitive topics to touch on right now because it's early 5 o'clock in the morning right now while I'm recording this, but they're scheduled to protest in Philly today, and it's been weighing heavy on my heart, um, just to respond or say something in regards to as harsh as it sounds, the murder, the murder of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, um, and excuse me, I'm still going through my notes because I'm still processing everything honestly, and you know, and still trying to figure everything out. But I have a few things that I wanted to say. I feel like it's your responsibility, especially when you create a platform, that you speak on certain things that's happening within the community that you come from. And I always wonder why people that look like me get to a certain height and they don't say anything, and I kind of understand it, and I'll get more into it later. But I just know for me, it was weighing too heavy on my heart, um, to not say something, and I was trying to figure out how do I say something in my own way and still honor a man that lost his life. Rest in peace, George Floyd. All right, so let's get into it. We seen in Minneapolis, George Floyd had an officer had kneeled on his neck or his upper body, and it's shown on camera that he was saying like I can't breathe, and it's still that man lost his life, man. And to be honest with you guys, I haven't watched the video. Um, I haven't. I seen pictures. I've seen people talk and share their perspective because I learned this along maybe about a few years ago. I it weighs heavy on me when I see a brother or even a sister lose their life on camera, and all these people was either, of course, I'm always gonna be mad at the people that caused the death, but also just people recording it, and it's like, for me, and I'll get more into that later too. I would probably be the person on the camera trying to help the person. You know what I mean? Uh, I wouldn't be. I could. There's no way I could sit on the sideline and watch something like that happen. And I respect those people too because they are exposing something that's been going on for a long time. But I also know I can't sit there and even think about the what if this person. If I hear I can't breathe, I'm gonna help that person. It's just first reaction for me, and I know first reaction for me is not always good, but I know that's just in my nature, and so I haven't watched the video, and I've learned for a lot of the therapists and the people that I'm connected with in the mental health community that there's something called secondary trauma, and I want to look up the definition because I feel like it weighs heavy on me, really. And when I Google the definition, it says secondary trauma can be incurred when an individual is exposed to people who have been traumatized themselves, disturbing descriptions of traumatic events by a survivor or others inflicting cruelty on one another. Symptoms of secondary trauma are similar to those of PTSD. And of course, I haven't been clinically diagnosed with anything like that, but um, I do think I dance with that because it just weighs heavy on me, and I feel because I empathize so deeply with people. I think I take the burden a lot more burden than I need to. So when something things like this happen, I tend to get away from social media. I try not to talk about it too much because um, honestly, it infuriates me. It infuriates me, and it makes me want to get out there. And I feel sometimes I feel hopeless and helpless, and I'm like, it's something. It's got to be something that I got that I can do. We can't just sit up here and just sit and watch that man um, lose his life on camera and then nothing be done. So I kind of understand the sentiment of the people that are looting around the country right now. Not saying that I condone it or I support it, but I do understand the sentiment behind it. And it doesn't bring his life back, but it does allow you to exhibit some anger and some frustration that has been built up for a long time. So, but back to that subject, I haven't watched it, but I've gotten plenty of information surrounding the subject. I'm very informed around it. I just refuse to watch the video, because it just weighs too heavy on my heart. Um, I'll give you guys a personal conversation as I was getting the information regarding surrounding George Floyd's death. It One of my closest friends called me and he was like, "Yeah, Reg, something happened again, man." I'm like, "I know. I'm seeing some of the stuff that's going on social media." And he was like, "Well, and I don't want to spread any false news about George Floyd. Like that man lost his life. And you're never supposed to disrespect the dead, but." Um, they were saying about like he had like some type of history. I'll go with that wording. He had some type of history in his past, and the things that he was doing weren't too good. And I'm not here to judge anybody because that's not even in my nature to judge anybody. And that's what my friend was bringing up to me, a very close African American friend of mine. um he was saying like, yeah, he was doing this and he was doing that, and I'm like, bro, let me stop you right here, man. um you got to be careful with the media because the media gets to control the narrative of a person. And I was saying to him, and I used the example with him, I'm like, bro, if God forbid anything happens to you and in that type of situation, they're going to pull up, mind you, I know what you do, I know what you've been through, but they're going to pull up all the bad things that you've done instead of everything that you currently been doing. You know what I mean? They're not going to say you take care of your kids. They're not going to say you're a hardworking man and you go to work every day. They're not going to say what you do for your community. So I had to, but that narrative is one that's played around so long. Like when we see these untimely deaths or these murders, uh, there's a lot of misconceptions that go on out there where they'll tarnish the person's name to kind of say basically you deserve to die. And I never want to feel that anybody deserves to die, especially in that manner that he was murdered. And so that's one of the conversations that um, I've been having around there. But I wanted to tell a couple stories of my interactions that could have led to police brutality, and someone more informed probably can say like this: these were form of police brutality. Um, because you can have harassment. It's probably levels and layers to it. But I've never been like beating on the ground by a police officer. I've never been in any of those unfortunate situations. But I did have a couple running with the law where things could have went either way. And like I said earlier, I'm not the sit on the sideline type of person. I'm more of a like, let's go. And I've chosen to use that type of energy and advocacy to do it in a good way, but it could have been total opposites of like how they said Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Like I choose to go one way because I don't know. I don't even honestly I'm still processing that way, but it could get real crazy about it right there if I decided it to, and I try to go the other way. But I remember early on one of my first interactions with the police um, was when me and my one of my friends were training football, uh, and because I was going to college and I wanted to make the football team, and so we trained in the middle of the night at the park. because nobody was in the park. We got the whole field to ourselves. So we used to train me, and I mean, when I say middle, maybe like 2, 3 in the morning. Um, and literally, that's what we doing. Took the cones out there, had the football, and we were ready. And my mom always told me to walk with ID, and it didn't register to me until I got older, and maybe she did explain it to me. I'll give her credit for that, but it didn't register. I'm like, why do I have to walk with ID? I'm not doing nothing. If what am I walking with ID for? And so one day, one of these football practices that me and my friend put together, we were walking back, and the police stopped us. And I'm like, why are y'all stopping us for? We're not running from nothing. You can clearly see we have a football in our hand. You could clearly see we got cones and carrying around. Like, why y'all stopping us? So they pulled us over. And mind you, we were young, probably about 18, 19. Because it was like in that in between stage of going to high school to college. And he pulled us over, like, where y'all going? Where's the ID? I don't know if my friend has his ID, but he was talking calmly to them, and they pulled him to the side and was talking to him. But me, I was going bananas, cursing them out, talking crazy, and they actually handcuffed me and put me in the car. Um, and it was like we just wanted to know where y'all was going. We just wanted to identify y'all because it's some things going on around here. But I still didn't feel like they had the right to stop me. Like we clearly had a football in here. I don't even think they had to. They had to. We were dirty. We looked like we just came from playing football. But that was one of my early interactions where you could literally not be doing anything wrong, but because there's a different set of rules for African Americans in this country, you almost got to be extra secure. Because I've seen other friends as well, and I'll use one of my friends' example of it. Um, he lives in a predominantly white neighborhood, and so we just got done from playing basketball, and that wasn't in the middle of the night, but we just got done from playing basketball, and we was driving home from basketball, and and it's still, I don't want to say it bothers me, but it's just still, you can be in two different worlds. We were driving home from playing basketball. I'm like, hey, look, bro, the police behind you right now. You might want to either pull over or pull to the side. He was like, for what? Why would I pull to the side? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, everything's legit. Like, what? And I'm like, wow, man, people can grow up in two different, worlds without looking around. And fortunately, we didn't get pulled over. Um, but he was so confident in it, and because of my experiences, I wasn't as confident in it. So that night, the flashback to the night we got pulled. Fortunately, the cop let us go, but they had me handcuffed in the back of the car. It could have went so differently, but even though I was in the right, I kind of aggravated the situation, and it didn't give them the right. But I shared that story because I wanted to say it was um my first early experience with it, be interacting with police and learning that we uh operate under a different rule set. You know what I mean? One of my next interactions with it was with my uncle. My uncle's a Rastafarian. He has dreads, tall, 6 foot. I don't even know how tall he is. Maybe 6'6". Um, and I was in high school, and I used to go visit him to get some wisdom, some knowledge, and just to just get some as I was growing as a black man. And so he was leaving to drop me off home, and before we got out there, he was like, "Hey, um, these police been riding up and down the block because them boys over there, I think they looking over there with the at them boys to make sure they're not doing nothing. So we may get pulled over. They see me with my dreads or whatever, so we may get pulled over. I lie to you not, we go out the house, walk to the car, we hit the end of the block, and the police start following us. They start following us, we turn up the block, they pull us over. So um they pulled him over and said, I don't even know what they said to him. That memory is so long, but I remember vividly they were like getting aggressive with him early, and he was like, "Yo, I didn't even do nothing. I just left out of my home. Um, I'm taking my nephew back to his house." And the cop came over and started talking to me, and he was yelling. My uncle started yelling at the cop like, "You don't gotta talk to him. He's the passenger. He's just a kid." You know, they were going back and forth. And again, fortunately, in that situation, um, they let him go. They let us go. But I'm just like, why? Why is this world like this? Like, I know my uncle, he don't do too much, and people buy like just being operating under that system, man. It really infuriates me because you really get a lesson early on. I got two sons that I kind of gotta let them know a different standard of living, and it's still a conversation that I'm still trying to process to have. And maybe one day I'll sit down and tell you guys about it. But those were just some of my interactions with the police, um, and how I had many and more instances where it could have went the other way as well. But those were a few that really hit me, and I know I needed to share those because it may seem like I haven't probably had those interactions, but it's a bunch of them that I experienced. It's one of the reasons why I marched for Eric Gardner when he I don't even know how many years ago, but his whole movement was "I can't breathe," and he got murdered, even though they um and I think it was the same position, if I'm not mistaken, where they put that knee and he like, "Yo, I can't breathe," and it's still something happening to him, and they still dying on camera. And so I marched for him, um, and it just was great to see the city of Philadelphia come and unify together for a common cause, and hopefully bring some uh, awareness to what's happening within our community. And so that was my first experience with protesting and marching. Um, Now, I will say I do not march anymore, and one of the major reasons of it, I shared with you earlier, is because I'm more of a, I'm 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 too involved in these situations, and I can say this to you guys because over the years of listening to the podcast, you kind of got to know me. But I'm literally ready to die when it comes to something I believe in, whether that be my family, my mission, my movement, anything that I believe in. I'm ready to die about it, and I'll feel comfortable leaving this earth knowing that I die for something noble. And so I've learned that about once I learned that about myself, I had to start being careful of what I was ready to die for. You know what I mean? And so especially once I had kids, now the choices that I had to make getting ready to die became a little bit more slimmer because I had two of these boys and my fiance to come home to. And I remember when I went to go march for Eric Gardner, um, my mom was like, "Well, y'all be safe and have fun." And I'm like, "Why is my mom not marching with us?" And I think certain people, that's why they don't come out and support some of these movements, because they start to think about um, their own reservation or their own life when it comes to these movements. And I don't fault anybody. You support your cause and your community any way that you can. But I learned that lesson early on about being ready to die. The other reason why I don't really march like that anymore is the confusion that once I was at marching for the Eric Gardner situation. um it was just too many chefs in the kitchen trying to be leaders. And mind you, I feel like I'm a leader in my own right, but I'm also ready to be a supporter too. Like, I know how to support when it's time to support, but it was so much confusion. And I'm like, man, one group want to go here, you got one group. There's no unity, and I'm all about unifying for a cause. And I feel like some people were taking advantage of the situation to either show their skill sets or show that everybody wanted to be the leader, and it was like it's not going to work this way, because then you got all these small subsets of groups. And so that was One of the reasons. And like I said, like I'll end off on that subject or that perspective about like I'm not going to be the one recording when it comes to these videos. Like I will be the one in it, and so I really do have to um pay attention to everything that I do, because I know the impact that I would try to leave on the situation. And so one of the subjects that's been coming up a lot, and I'm not sure if I wanted to talk about it, but I feel like I would do it a injustice by not saying anything completely. But I would talk about our non-black, because I don't want to even make this a white and black thing. Because you have Asian Americans, you have Latino Americans, you have all these other different cultures that love the African American culture, but when it comes time to support some of these causes, um, they're not around to support these causes. And so um, I don't even know how to feel when it comes to our white counterparts or our Chinese counterparts or our Latino counterparts not supporting when it comes to these situations. Uh, but I know that it does hurt me, because you would want that unity, because we know how to support others as well, but you want that unity from people. And even one of the things that it stuck with me, and I said I talk about it now, or I talked about it earlier, was why these people, like making the reason for why these other cultures don't stick with or come into our, I don't want to say trauma, but stick for our causes. There we go. And I just recently watched an interview with Kevin Hart, and he was saying how he envies Dave Chappelle, um, in the sense of he's able to put out that last special, if it's controversial, if you believe it or not believe it. But he said he loved it because he had the freedom to say basically what he wanted. And Kevin Hart was saying more so like, I feel like I don't have that type of freedom because I have too many people under my umbrella. Whereas, and he wasn't doing it as a shot to Dave. Um, he was just saying Dave could literally just do what he wanted. Like he went to Africa when he wanted to. Like he just stopped. And so with Kevin Hart, he like, it's so many people that livelihood depend on me. I can't just make certain jokes because of the people that are under my umbrella, or I can't just do certain things because this could end someone's life when it comes to their family and their livelihood. And I say all that to say, um, I think when it comes to other outside races supporting us, they have their own livelihood that they are thinking about first before it comes to our causes. And um, I think that's why some of the reasons why they don't step in. I actually share another personal conversation with you guys that I had. Was talking to a female friend of mine's, and she was saying like she doesn't like the fact that white I get white people don't get involved in American African causes. Like they love the music, they love um, the food, they love the women, they love the men. But when it's time to for situations like this, that they're nowhere to be found. And I'm one of those people that, as much bad as there is in the world, like somebody like terrible, that's terrible, like Hitler or somebody like that. What are some of the good qualities in that individual? Doesn't make them good, but what are some of the qualities that's in the individual? So with Hitler, for example, and I know how bad he was. He had leadership qualities because he was able to galvanize a bunch of people to do something bad. And so going back to the conversation about why they don't join, I think with um, what I was telling her in the conversation, I'm like, that literally probably don't enter their world to a certain thing, to a certain mission. So, for example, me and her found out the information about George Floyd around the same time, you know what I mean? And because we're watching the same news outlets, we're involved with the same people who are watching the same news outlets. So we kind of get first we kind of getting the same knowledge, whereas somebody from a different culture, somebody from a different community, they're not watching the Shade Room like we're watching. They're not on these different rap news sites like we are, World Star, Hip Hop, or anything like that. And so by the time they get certain news, what's big to us is not big to them. And that's not to throw them any bell of not being informed, but it's also just trying to be aware that everything in your world is not everything in their world. You know what I mean? And so I'll use my son, for example. He's big into his tablet world, and he's always excited to show me something that happened, or he's always really frustrated when something happens in that world. And his mom get to him sometimes, like, that world is not world, and but that world is world to him. So you kind of got to go in that world to understand him. And that's what I'll say to other cultures who don't get involved with ours, or the African American culture, when it comes to our problems. Is just because some of these things are not real to you, don't mean they're not real to these other individuals, us being the African American culture. And so I implore our outside individual. And now let me get into this because I want to use this. I want to make sure I get this across. So one of my friend Nick, and Nick has been a big supporter of the podcast. Anything that I do way early on, maybe about 2-3 years ago. Shout out to Nick. He's in Japan right now. And he's a white not African American. What am I talking about? He's a white male, and he was saying you should use your privilege the right way to end racism. And he has a whole list right here. And I think the list is maybe 30 ways, but I'm gonna read off five of them. So that way I don't like discrediting people without giving them some things that they can do to, change their ways. So I always want to educate, you know what I mean? Inform, there we go, was the word I'm looking for. And he said, number one, talk about race. Talk about it with your family, especially talk about it with your children. And please don't do it in a blanket, love everyone kind of way. Yes, that's a great sentiment, but it is bypassing of real and difficult issues. If Black family and children must talk and learn about race from a young age, so do white families and children. Zero expectations. Expand the conversation to your community, whichever that may be. We all have them. Do your part. Consider yourself and complicity in your complicity with racism. Understand there are levels, and though you may not be committing overt acts of racism, you are most definitely involved with the covert kinds. Three, use your wallet. Find organizations that you can donate money to in assistance to fighting racism. Four, sign petitions or make calls. These take a matter of moments, and luckily most of us have the privilege of time right now. Five, educate yourself on further practices, resources, and methods to fighting and ending racism. But do the work yourself. Use Google, buy a book, listen to a podcast, but do not burden Black people with your guilt or questions. And number six, he has up there, follow the link in my bio for a starter list on the above. And if anybody want the rest of the list, I can tag Nick, or you guys can hit me up in the DM, and I'll definitely get that list right over to you. But I thought um, that was a great way to educate people, because we can't tell them what they're not doing or what they're doing wrong without giving them some solutions to what to do right. And so I think that's a great starter list for any individual that wants to get involved, that wants to do certain things to change the narrative behind it. Because as much as you may feel like you're not, you will. But moving forward, I just want to address real quick our presidents, and the reason why I say our presidents, because we do live in America, or I do live in America, and this is it is the country that we have to stand for when it comes down for picking sides. He recently put out some tweets, and I won't directly quote him, but it was basically looting leads to shooting. And honestly, I'm still trying to process the feeling, but a lot of people say basically he just waged war on the African American culture, or the African American people. And it's a heavy time and heavy topic that we living in. But what I would say to any individual in our community, in the African American community, please protect yourself. Protect yourself. Make sure you get home to your family. Make sure you're staying safe. Um, I know they say we have guns in our community, but we don't got militaries in our community. And so I don't want anybody to feel scared or afraid, but also be aware that we are in in a place where they can do a lot of damage if they choose to. And again, not to scare anybody, but I just know that it's an unfair playing field. I'll leave it at that. It's an unfair playing field, and for him to put something out there like that, I'll just say be aware and stay protected, stay safe, stay sanitized, stay protected, man. Um, Lastly, I'll leave off with this because again, I'm still processing my thoughts. I'm still trying to understand everything that's going on. Um, but I would like to offer some support to people who are feeling heavy during this time. Black Man Hill is always doing King's Corner, um, and we offer support every week to men of color. I know therapy for Black girls or therapy for Black girls. I'm sorry, I blanked out there for a second, but therapy for Black girls are offering their podcast. Again, with Black Men Hill, we offer that therapeutic space for men of color, so you guys can check out those two organizations. And again, lastly, I'll leave off with this. If you are really taking on that secondary trauma, please just get off of social media. Please just be informed, but you don't have to overindulge in everything. Because I know for me, I only could take but so much, and just reliving those scenes over and over, reliving all the Sandra Bland's, the Tamir Rice, the uh, just all the many people we lost over the years to certain things. Just sometimes you have to get away from it because it can weigh heavy on your heart. For those who don't want to protest or those who don't know what to do, just support your community in your own way. um this is my way, you know what I mean? Like I said, I may not get out there and protest, but this is my way to draw attention, bring awareness, and provide solutions. And you can find your way. May that be donating to a cause or organization like a Black Men Hill. Maybe that's you know calling a friend to check on them. It's just many ways that we can all support our community in a time like this, in a timely matter like this. um and again, stay safe, stay sanitized, because we still are fighting a virus out there at this time, and we still have to be aware of our health, and mentally and physically. And please, guys, just stay safe, man. I want to see everybody alive. I want to see everybody flourishing, but I know there are two heavy things that's happening in the world right now, and I just want to see my people still survive these things moving forward. I have nothing left at this point. Like I said, I'm still processing all of my thoughts. Um, if you see me blank out a couple times during this episode, it's because it's still weighing heavy on my heart. But I just felt it was my duty and obligation to come share with you guys how I'm thinking about things. We'll go back to our regularly scheduled conversations. I had some previously recorded conversations that we'll put out on the podcast, but I just wanted to come talk to y'all and tell y'all how I'm doing and processing everything. And then on that note, follow, subscribe to the podcast, share with a friend, leave a comment on Apple. And remember, this podcast has never been about a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative, and it's a place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.